What is going on, Pats Nation? It's Patriots Global here, back with another video, and in this one, we are going to be talking about why the New England Patriots did not go all in on Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones, or I guess now I should say Tennessee Titans wide receiver Julio Jones. The last few weeks have been insane when it comes to Julio Jones, the Julio Jones sweepstakes, who's going to get him, who was the betting odds. This was probably the biggest storyline in all of the NFL for the last several weeks. It went from the Patriots being in the top 3 to the Patriots being number 1 for a majority of the time. Then the Patriots were below the top 3. It was even reported at one point that the New England Patriots offered the Atlanta Falcons a first-round pick. We don't know if that was going to be for 2022 or 2023, but a first-round pick. And also Sony Michel, and I believe there was a later round pick in there somewhere also. Now, personally, I wasn't someone who really believed in that rumor. I know supposedly it was confirmed, but if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you're most likely going to be taking a first-round pick, Sony Michel, and like I said, I believe there was a mid to late round pick also included in there, and then have to take on some of that Julio Jones contract versus getting, maybe a second and a late round pick, but not having to take on any of the Julio Jones contract. So to me, that tells me that New England likely did not offer anything of the sort that was reported. And this is what really sucks with, big name guys like Julio Jones, with teams like the New England Patriots who could really use a star wideout receiver of a Julio Jones caliber. And that is that the media hypes this thing up tremendously, and with stories like this, it's truly hard to know, okay, which news is real, which news is fake, which news is just being hyped up tremendously. You really got to try to find the truth in what is being reported. Now, don't get me wrong. The New England Patriots were interested in Julio Jones. New England did their due diligence. They were in the race to some capacity, but I really do not believe it was to the capacity that several people were trying to make it seem, also known as the media. Real quick, y'all, I want to take a quick pause and give a huge shout out to my boy, Neil Ray. Neil, bro, you bought some Patriots Global merch. Looks like you are rocking just a classic PG styled classic logo t-shirt. Love it, bro. You look amazing, and you are supporting not just me, but the entire Patriots Global family, and you are looking like a straight king, my boy. So nothing but a huge shout out and constant support from my boy, Neil Ray. Again, bro, you look fantastic in that PG merch. Like always, if you guys do want to get a shout out in my next video just like this, send me a picture or video of you rocking any style of PG merch. That's a sweatshirt, a short sleeve shirt, long sleeve shirt, a mug, anything from the PG shop. I'll make sure to include you in my next video. Like always, in every single video, link in the description below to the PG shop. From what was being said, the Patriots were linked onto Julio Jones in the beginning. They were heavily on Jones in the beginning. They were already calling the Falcons, like I said earlier, doing their due diligence on him, but they were not following the situation to a T like it was being made out to be. From what I understood throughout this whole process was that it wasn't necessarily what New England had to give up, but rather the contract they had to take on, and I really do believe that that is what prevented this trade with Julio Jones, was that the Falcons truly just did not, and I repeat, did not want to pay that $15 million contract. Would they have had to pay the whole thing? No, but even having to pay half of that was something they were not looking to do. They wanted to ship Julio off and get all of that compensation back that they could use to potentially make a couple more moves, but most importantly, sign their 2021 draft class. The problem with the Patriots is that, like I said, they did not want to take on that contract. Guys, if this comes down to one thing, it comes down to the money. It comes down to the financial standpoint. And in the end, if the Patriots really wanted to force the Falcons to take on half of that Julio Jones contract, bring on that large sum, so it brings the cap number down for the Patriots. They would have had to offer something significant to the Atlanta Falcons in return, because like I mentioned, the big reason that they were trading Julio Jones wasn't for the compensation. Okay, in the end, them keeping Julio Jones versus the second round pick they received would have been a much better business move for them. But because of the financial standpoint that the Falcons were in, they had to ship off Julio Jones, so it made more sense for them to ship him off and get rid of the largest amount of money they could than to ship him off, only get about maybe half of that, but get a little bit more compensation. So overall, from what was reported, Julio Jones would be traded from the Atlanta Falcons to the Tennessee Titans. The Falcons would receive a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 fourth-round pick, and then the Titans would get Julio and a 2023 sixth-round pick. So essentially, what the Titans are giving up is a second in 2022, a fourth in 2023, and then the Titans also had to, or rather the Falcons would have to give up Julio Jones and then that sixth-round pick in 2023. Again, if you think that the Patriots were not in on Julio Jones after the offseason that this team has had, uncharacteristically aggressive, and they went out on one of the best receivers in the NFL because of a second-round pick in 2022 and a fourth-round pick in 2023, you're crazy. You can't make that argument. It all comes down to the financial standpoint, and New England, they were not going to budge on that $15 million contract for Julio Jones, who is in his 30s. And yes, New England technically does have the money right now to take on Julio Jones. They're sitting at about $15 million right now in available cap space. So bringing on Julio would pretty much put them at no money. And let's keep in mind, while they have signed some of their 2021 draft class, they haven't signed everybody. Okay, they haven't signed Christian Barmore. They have not signed Ramondre Stevenson. They have not signed Mac Jones. They have not signed their top picks, which is going to take up the most money, and that is priority one, is to get those guys signed. Another aspect that you have to remember is Stephon Gilmore. And I think that this is something that people are just not realizing and people aren't thinking about. And I believe I said this in my recent video where I talked about Julio Jones, or maybe it was a live stream. But this is something that I haven't heard the media talk about. I haven't heard anybody on videos or articles talk about this. But do people not realize that the Patriots still have to pay Stephon Gilmore? Stephon Gilmore is easily a top 10 cornerback still in the NFL. You can't make the argument that he isn't, and he isn't even being paid as a top 10 cornerback. Gilmore will be making right now on the books $7 million for 2021. Let's remember that the Patriots had to take some of the 2021 money, moved it to 2020 just for him to come back and play for them this past season. Now, if they want him to stop holding out of offseason programs and they want him to at least play for them at least in 2021 for his final year, they're going to have to bump that number up from $7 million, which again is going to take some of that money away from $15 million that they currently already have. I think in a perfect world, New England gets an extension done with one of these top corners, whether it's Stephon Gilmore or whether it's J.C. Jackson. Another aspect financially for the Patriots that you have to remember is that they like to roll in somewhere between $5 to $8 million into the regular season. They like to sit comfortably with a little bit extra cap space just in case they have to make any last minute trades, any last minute signings for any players that is, unexpectedly released. This is something that historically Belichick loves to do. Belichick, right at the trade deadline, is always very, very active. Does he always jump on something? Not always. Have we seen it several times, him jump on a pretty big name player last minute? Heck yeah. And after the offseason he's having, I wouldn't put it against Belichick if they're a linebacker away, if they're a wide receiver away, if they need one more piece before the trade deadline. Belichick wants to have that money already in-house rather than last minute having to restructure contracts mid-season, or not mid-season, but during season, and having to release or trade players or cut players while the season's already progressed. So technically, do the Patriots have the money to pay Julio Jones? Yeah, but what people aren't understanding is that you still have Stephon Gilmore. You need to figure that situation out. More importantly than Julio Jones, I would say. The Patriots want to roll into 2021 with still some extra cap space, and then they also have to get the rest of their 2021 draft class signed. At the end of the day, Julio Jones would have been the icing on the cake. It would have been a luxury trade for the Patriots, really any team, to be honest. But at the end of the day, was it needed for New England? No. I would say that it was more needed for the Titans, quite honestly, than it was needed for New England. And this doesn't make Belichick cheap. And I've seen a lot of people say this because, the trade didn't go through in our favors, that Belichick is cheap and Belichick can't make trades and he sucks. Even though he just went out and spent the most money, the most guaranteed money in a period of time in NFL history, bringing on Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Matthew Judon, Jalen Mills, selecting their future quarterback potentially in the first round. I would say if the Patriots needed one big thing, I say there's a couple of things that still have to do, but one of those things would be to get a true number one wide receiver. The Patriots don't need a second guy, a third guy, a fourth guy, a fifth guy. They have all of that covered down pat. I think if anything, that true number one wide receiver to play on the outside is something that they could still use. And Julio Jones, definitely could have been that guy, but at the same time, it's not a make or break thing. The Patriots adding Kendrick Bourne, adding Nelson Aguilar, that is going to help this team out tremendously compared to what we've seen the past several years, not to mention the emergence of Jacoby Myers. You also added 2 top 10 tight ends, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, guys that you paid a lot of money. And to be quite honest, if you bring in Julio Jones, that's going to take snap time away from one or two of these guys. And after the money you spent on both of those tight ends, the money you spent on Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, that's kind of just a waste of your money. You want to get the most value out of what you spent, and the best way of doing so is to get those guys on the field. Again, Julio would have been a great addition. He is up there in age, but still playing at a high level. But honestly, I'm okay with us not making the trade. We keep the money, we keep the compensation, and we still have a lot of new young guys coming in with Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, the emergence of Jacoby Myers, the two top 10 tight ends who, again, are very young in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. I'm confident that that will get the job done and that the Patriots will be perfectly fine without the addition of a Julio Jones. Before we end this video off, though, I do quickly want to talk about the sponsors of this video, betonline.ag. Now, BetOnline has the fastest and the easiest ways to bet on all of your sports action. Football might be over, but NBA, college basketball, and the NHL are a full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline also has you covered for all of your news, scores, and odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's completely free to sign up. All you guys got to do is head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in with the action, and don't forget to use that promo code CLNS50 to receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. But what are your guys' thoughts on Julio Jones to the Titans? How are you guys feeling? I know some people are down, but guys, quite honestly and confidently, I can say we're going to be fine without him. What are your thoughts, though? Let me know in the comment section below. Like always, though, I appreciate you guys for watching and supporting the channel. Like always, go Pats. Catch you in the next one.